Tour coordinator.
Tour coordinator. So we're excited to have you back. Love what your topic, and it's very important. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So today we're here to talk about the historic Southeast area. I will get us started with some of the background history on the neighborhood and then hand it over to Nelson. At our last presentation, we talked about witness stones and the fact that Lancaster did have slavery throughout the 18th century and all the way up until 1840. When we're looking at the Southeast area in particular, there was a Swiss Mennonite immigrant, Hans Musser, and he acquired the entire southeast quadrant of what is today Lancaster, going all the way to the Conestoga River. It was an incredibly bountiful land. He could grow crops, there was timber, there were 2 stone quarries, a sand quarry, and then he could begin selling off the lots. He became incredibly wealthy, and that passed down to his son and grandson, and they began to enslave people, just like many of the elites in Lancaster were doing it at that time. And that's the family that I'm descended from. The home of Hans Musser was torn down in around 1960, but the home of his son, Johann, still stands on Chesapeake. So in the early part of the 19th century in the Southeast neighborhood, we have a combination of both free and enslaved Africans living in the area. And then with the Civil War, we have Civil War veterans begin to move into the area from elsewhere at the end of the war. And we have a number of Civil War veterans buried in Lancaster, including at Bethel A Church. At the end of the Civil War, there was the era of Reconstruction, of a rebuilding in the South. And that lasted for 12 years. And out of that Reconstruction and out of that mindset came Abraham Polite, Nelson Polite's grandfather. So he came from South Carolina out of that Reconstruction mindset. But right on the heels of Reconstruction, after that brief 12 years, we have the beginning of Jim Crow in the South, and that ultimately led to the Great Migration of a massive movement of African Americans from the South to the North and to the West Coast to get away from those conditions of Jim Crow. And what that brought about in Lancaster was this huge blossoming of culture. You've heard about the Harlem Renaissance. Well, the Renaissance wasn't just in Harlem. It was all across these cities that were beneficiaries of the Great Migration, including in Lancaster. And in this tour, you're going to see a lot of this incredible flowering of political, religious, cultural institutions across the board in the Southeast area. And a complete vibrancy of the community. So that's what we're going to be recreating for you today. We are doing our presentation in chronological order. Normally, if you take our walking tour, and I encourage you to take the walking tour to see it for yourself, we do it in a way that makes sense geographically. But now with the slideshow, we have the opportunity to put it in chronological order. So that's what we're doing today. So we're going to start with Bethel A Church.
Bethel A Church started in 1817. We came out of the St. James Church. Once again, we wanted to start our own church. So about 50 members, James Clendenin and about 50 other members asked permission to congregate, because at that particular time, black people weren't able to congregate unless they got permission from the larger society. But we came out and started in 1817. The dedication of the church, we needed funds to complete the church, didn't happen until 1821. And we dedicated the church and kind of partnered with Trinity Lutheran Church in terms of inviting their minister, Christian Endress, to give the dedication sermon at that particular time. because they helped us with the funds. So that's Bethel. Bethel AME Church has been on the forefront for the African Americans since its inception. Just kind of going back a little bit before we get to Reverend Stephens, in 1879, that church that we established in 1817 was burned. Arson happened. Of course, they never found anybody that committed the crime. But the amazing thing about it in 1879 is that happened in April, but by November of the same year, they built the Bethel Church that you see standing today. So that speaks to the ambition, the dedication, and commitment of the congregation. Again, fast forward to Reverend Stephens. He was a visionary. And he wanted better for not only the church and families and the community, he wanted better for us. And so he challenged the system. Rocky Springs had an amusement park. And back in that day, Rocky Springs was considered to be similar to what Hershey is now. And the African Americans would congregate there once a year from Philadelphia, Coatesville, Reading, York, and we would have a gathering there. And so we were able to spend our money at concession stands and get on the rides. But the pool, the swimming pool in July was closed for repairs every year. Every year, the sign closed for repairs. So Reverend Stephens was in the forerunner. He was the pastor of Bethel AME Church, and we marched on that site.
There it is. Okay. Sorry, this is a little bit like delayed reaction. Okay.
Okay. And then here's the Rocky Springs where we marched. Okay. NAACP. He was, I think, also the head of the NAACP at that particular time, and we marched. And eventually the pool was shut down. Yeah. I mean, the amusement park. Yeah. The Road Lily. This is inside the church on the stained glass windows. And that picture is a picture of the Road Lily. That, when you saw that picture, that meant it was a safe place for you to go, whether you saw it on a quilt or somebody marked it on something else, that meant it was a safe place for those who were seeking their freedom from the south to the north to come. And that was one of the signs. Yeah, mostly on quilts. Peter Gordon, we'll go back to him. He was important because he was, once again, one of those travelers. How many people have seen this picture before? I think I was here the last time. I think I showed this picture. But Peter Gordon was an escaped enslaved person, and he escaped during the Civil War. And he escaped to go into the United States colored troops. And then upon examination, medical examination, the examiner saw his back, and he was appalled and shocked. And so were those who were in the North were shocked about that. But he took that picture and he spread that picture throughout the country. So it let people know the horrors of slavery, because there were some narratives saying that slavery was a good thing for us and a kind thing, an educational thing, a family thing for us, but it really was not. Yeah. United States colored troops, we fought in the Civil War. That's at Bethel Church Cemetery. That cemetery was established when the church was established in 1817. We buried there up until 1906, and then we went to Stevens Greenland Cemetery. The United States colored troops, black people fought in every war of this country that this country has ever been involved in, and all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And even though we fought, but we fought for different reasons. In this war in particular, we fought for our freedom. Yeah. The Cultural Center, the building was built back in 1895. Yeah, I'm not certain exactly what.
Yeah, just that you went to school there, your kindergarten graduation.
Okay, yeah, that's my kindergarten school. I went up to 3rd grade, and my first graduation, and really the best one that I've had, was my kindergarten graduation. I loved it. I loved it. Oh, I remember it well, and have pictures. Yeah, we were donned in the caps and the gowns, and how I remember this so distinctly, the cap and gown was made out of crepe paper. Now, I know you guys know what crepe paper is. Some of the young people, they don't know what crepe paper is. And the teachers were just always telling us, don't run, don't step on your gown, because it would rip. You know what I mean? The crepe paper would rip. So that's how I remember that. But yeah, it was a fun time. Charles Moten. Charles Moten is on my mother's side. She's a Wilson. That's her maiden name. And this is her great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. He fought, as you can see, he's a straight-up soldier, warrior, and he fought in the Civil War. Excuse me. The United States colored troops. But he was born in Tennessee and Chattanooga. And he, at age 16, was made a slave. Now, we don't know exactly what that meant, but we think that those owners, enslavers, were in some sort of debt, and then they made the family be enslaved to work. Well, at age 16, he escaped, and he went to the Federal Army and joined them, had some skirmishes in Richmond, and then joined the United States colored troops. He trained at Camp William Penn. Camp William Penn is just outside of Philadelphia. And once he was discharged after the war, in 1865, he made his way to Lancaster. Yeah. This is his home. He was able to purchase this log cabin home, which is still standing today, looking very well. The tenant really takes care of the home, the owner. It does have an extension on the back, but this is the front facade. And but he purchased that home in 1880. He and his wife Maria, she was from Reading. They bore something like 8 or 9 children, but just one really lived to a full adulthood. Lilia Doughty was her name, and that was my great-great-grandmother, and then my grandmother, then my mother, myself. Yeah. The Polite Homestead. Polite Homestead. We have a lot of stories, yeah, about that home. Purchased in 1923, the same year that my father was born. He was actually born in that home, purchased by Abraham and Blanche Richardson Polite. And he came up here from Ridgeland, South Carolina in 1903. And they had 5 children. They had a total of 8. Three died early birth, and then 5. One of those children was Nelson Polite Sr., my father, and he went on to do a number of different things. My grandfather did a number of different things. He was the past master at the Elks and exonerated ruler there. There's my parents. That's Jean Ann Wilson Polite. I was just talking about the great-great-grandfather on her side. They were married for like 52 years. Yeah.
Okay.
My father, we recognize the Boy Scouts because he did a number of different things throughout the course of his life. And I interviewed him 3 or 4 years before he passed. And he continued to refer back to the Boy Scouts and how that really gave him such a foundation for becoming the man that he became in later years. So I was very surprised about that, but I'm thinking he'd talk about some more of these other organizations that he was involved in many more years, for a lot more years than the Boy Scouts, but he really loved the Boy Scouts, and he was a Silver Beaver. He earned that rank. Yeah. Picture at Bethel. This is my grandfather and father on the end there. It's one of the only pictures that I have that those two are in the picture. Because most of the pictures, my father took the picture, so he was never in the picture. Yeah. We talked about the Polite homestead, and my grandfather joined the Green Book. Now you guys know what that is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here is the 1947 edition of the Green Book. And 540 North Street is in that book. There were 5 homes that was in the Green Book back in that day. And this is the only home that is still standing. Yeah, it's 540 North Street. Now we're beginning to take a glimpse and a look at the neighborhood in relationship to urban renewal. And as you can see, there's open space here because urban renewal came through and basically just tore down a lot of homes. The title sounds good. Urban meaning city, renewal, as if they would renew some things and revitalize some things. But basically they had a plan for the bulldozer to tear down a lot of homes. And some of them were blight, but not all of them that they tore down. Christmas Addicts. Yeah, Christmas Addicts was established, once again, based on segregation, based on, racial issues at that particular time. In 1915, Lancaster decided that they needed a nursery for their children. So they built one, but they would not accept black kids in the nursery. So the Negro Civic League was established in 1917. And they decided to establish the Christmas Addicts. Now, Christmas Addicts, we have got his name because in the Boston Massacre, he was the first person to die at the Boston Massacre. He was an enslaved individual, once again joining the revolutionary military and to seek his freedom and to maintain his freedom. And he was the first casualty, was Christmas Addicts. This is just the medical establishment at Christmas Addicts, and we can talk about Dr. Copper. Is he in here?
Yeah, I think
No.
he might be in the next one.
That's him, yeah. This is Dr. Copper here. He was our physician for that area. And he was invested into the community. The two stories that I have of him is during his office hours of maybe working there 10 to 12 hours throughout the course of the day, he would still afterwards make house visits. And he would come down to 540 North Street to treat myself or my grandparents or my parents or whoever it was. And then also we have our historian, Dr. Leroy Hopkins, who went on to graduate from Harvard. He started out at Millersville College, and Dr. Copper paid his tuition and also gave him a sweater when he started out his education. So that's just some examples of who he was in terms of the Oddfellows home. But okay, why don't you speak about that?
Yeah, so the Oddfellows Hall, that's the only picture we know of that exists that we have found so far, which is a little bit sad because this is what it looks like today. So the Oddfellows Hall became a victim of urban renewal. It's a parking lot now. But Nelson has very strong memories of the Oddfellows Hall. His father used to take him there sometimes, up to the second floor, his father meeting with other men of the community to better the community. And Nelson remembers these long, long hardwood floors, as a young man being brought up there by his father. So the urban renewal, what it did is that there are a number of cases where it almost like strategically took out certain buildings that were especially meaningful to the community, right? That Oddfellows Hall most likely could have been rehabilitated just fine, but they took it out. And because it was a real center of the community, there was a daycare there for a while before the Christmas Addicts daycare. It was a real center for adults would gather, problem solve, community building. And so that is an attack on the community. When they take out those buildings like that and just leave a parking lot, that leaves like a wound in the community of that gap of what used to be there. Very, very targeted.
The Conestoga Elks, once again, that was a place primarily for adults. As I mentioned earlier, my grandfather was a past exalted ruler of that Elks. He also was a founder there, one of the founders. But they would have activities for us, the children, right? And the two activities that came out of there that I'm aware of was the Tom Thumb wedding, right? With the little kids. So I know the Tom Thumb wedding. Yeah, there we are right there. There he is right here. Yeah. And that was a great time. So we would dress up and have a wedding. Yeah, and just parade down the aisle, tripping over stuff, But and then the second activity was the drum and bugle corps. Lancaster had a drum and bugle corps. My father was a part of that because he was military, and he knew about music. He played music and was a trumpet player, and he knew about marching. So he was involved in this, and we would travel to different locations for contests, and that's what this is. The judges are sitting there, and they're judging the the Drum and Bugle Corps children, but a lot of those times, Lancaster won, right? The number one prize, and that's over York, Reading, Harrisburg, as far as Chicago people would come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is the Drum and Bugle Corps.
Yeah.
Ed Millen's home. He was a chef, great chef in the area, and he also was the first Black Lancaster City police officer. Yeah. His only position was to be a chauffeur, but he was on the police force. His father was one of the establishers of the Stevens Greenland Cemetery, and that's a cemetery where Black people are buried.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to talk about Elizabeth Craig Carter, and that's her home there that you can see. Miss Craig Carter had two things that she really, really loved in life. And the first was music. She loved music. At the age of only 10 years old, she was giving a concert, a piano concert, for the Negro Civic League at one of their meetings. She went on to become the pianist for the church and the organist. Her nephew, Eddie, says she could play anything with a keyboard, including an accordion. She even, Nelson remembers his house was right down the street from here. Sunday morning, he'd be sitting out on his porch early, and there's Miss Libby every single Sunday, walking down North Avenue to the church, getting ready to play the piano for the church every single week, regularly. And she would even show up for events. You didn't even have to ask her to come. If music was called for in any kind of way, she would be there ready to play. She did pass away playing piano for a funeral, for Percy Williams' funeral. So we can say that she died loving, doing what she loved, you know, so. But there was a second thing that she loved as well, and that was children and education. And so her lifelong dream was to become a teacher. She got a teaching degree at Millersville. She even took some extra classes at Temple, but the school district of Lancaster would not hire a Black woman at that time. She really wanted to be a teacher, so she went to Virginia and she taught in some rural schools down there for a while, but Lancaster was her home, and she really wanted to come back home. So she came back home, and even with that experience teaching in Virginia, they would not hire her. But she's an example of somebody from this neighborhood, and we see it a lot, where she didn't let the barrier stop her from pursuing her dream of education and teaching. And everybody who remembers her, including Nelson, says that she radiated a love of learning. It was just who she was. She would talk to children about school and about education. She got involved in the Head Start program. She was the director of that for a while. She was interim director of the Crispus Attucks Center. She worked in adult education. She worked in education for the church. So every way that she possibly could, she did still pursue her dream of being a teacher. There's a picture of her at the church. She was very involved in the church. In the black hat there. Mm-hmm. And then you might have heard of the Carter McRae Elementary School in Lancaster. So the school district of Lancaster, after she passed away, they honored her by putting her name on the school. But it's bittersweet because they recognized all that she did for the community in education, but yet at the same time, they never let her teach while she was living. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to talk about the Wilkerson Funeral Home, and I'm going to start by talking about Ruby Mae Wilson Wilkerson. Mr. and Mrs. Wilkerson were from the Harrisburg area, and they both joined World War II. They were stationed about 20 miles apart in France at one time, and they continued to date there. They got married, they honeymooned in Paris. Can you imagine? And then they came back to Lancaster and started the funeral home. But as for Ruby Mae, She was a member of the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. Raise your hand if you know what that is. There's a wonderful film on Netflix. You can see about it. I highly recommend the film. So you've probably heard of the Women's Army Corps. Ruby May joined that, and she was put in an all-black women's unit, and they really wanted to see action overseas. Their commander was Charity Adams. But the military higher-ups didn't want to send black women over to Europe. Finally, Eleanor Roosevelt herself got involved in it, and they were sent over there. But they were given a job that it was believed they would fail, right? Because these higher-ups, white people in the military, almost thought, oh, well, this will be our chance to show that black people can't do the job. So there was this mail piled up, millions of pieces of mail in an old warehouse in England, and they were told to sort it within 6 months and deliver it to troops who were waiting for letters from home. Morale was very important, and loved ones here in America not getting their mail. They were truly expected to not be able to do this in 6 months. There was a group of white women who were sent to do it, and they didn't even try. They just threw up their hands and walked away. But these women under Charity Adams, they sorted and delivered all that mail in 3 months. Then they were sent to Paris, and they did the same thing, or France, and they did the same thing again there in France. So they were real heroes. I'll back this up just a minute. She was, her daughter describes her as being devoted to the community. She was kind of military, you know, that never left her, that military side. She was strict in a way. They had to make their beds military style every single morning. But she was also a very loving and devoted wife and mother. No matter how early it was, she would get up and cook a hot breakfast for her husband every single morning. And she would care for the community in times of grief and mourning. So she really was devoted to her family, to her community, and to her country. Okay.
As was her husband, Spencer Wilkerson, Sr., born in 1923. He was in World War II, a member of the Buffalo Soldiers, and he was the mortician, ran the business. He was good at what he does and very friendly with folks, okay? He would also allow, people, he would work with folks in terms of they didn't have the finances for the funeral, he would definitely work with people to the best of his ability. So we really respect what he did. That home is not there any longer. Once again, it's because of Urban Renewal. They tore down that home and other homes that are surrounding there. So we're soon to get a marker at that location.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me, are you talking about the funeral home was destroyed?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Yes. Yeah. And other homes surrounding that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know where he got his training to be a funeral director?
I read it. It's been a while back. I read it too. I want to say Philadelphia. I want to say
there was a funeral college. It's called Elks in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Which is where my father works. That's why I know about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know the answer to that question or no?
Yeah.
You didn't. Did you know him?
No. I knew my father went to Elks
Right.
College to become a funeral director.
Did he know Mr. Wilkerson? Okay.
That's
Okay.
a guess that maybe he did.
Right.
What?
It's a guess that maybe he did. Go to that same
Then I
school.
would have gone in the early 1930s, probably, late 20s.
Okay. Early. Well, still, he practiced for a lot of years, right?
Oh yeah,
Then he might have knew him.
maybe.
Yeah. Because he practiced initially in the Harrisburg area. Where's your father?
My father practiced in Park Ford near Pottstown, Phoenixville.
Okay.
outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. Yeah, that's where he initially practiced, was in Harrisburg. They were both living in Harrisburg, and then a funeral parlor became open in Lancaster, and they established the business there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stevens Greenland Cemetery, established in 1906. Once again, that's where black people were buried. Bethel Cemetery, we showed you earlier, that was full, because that's really not, that's maybe like 300 burials there. There's like 500 and some burials at Stevens Greenland Cemetery.
Where is that located?
It's on South Duke Street. Yeah, I forget what the address is, but I want to say 1200 block, something like that, on South Duke Street, going towards where Rocky Springs was at. That road right there. I don't know if you know that area or not. Yep. And of course, they have Civil War veterans there. The Sims home was not in the Green Book, but Miss Reba Sims and Herman Sims, they were able to take the Negro League baseball players in when they would come to Lancaster, and also the Bowman technical students. They would house them also for housing. She has 2 sons that were Lancaster City policemen. One went to the rank of detective, and then once he retired, he became a magistrate of the Southeast area. Okay. She also has Miss Ruby has a grandson, Gerald Wilson. He's our genealogist, and he was on retired policeman, and Mark Sims is currently a principal. Barney Ewell, we really love that photo of him in comparison to the photo they have downtown Lancaster. Has anybody seen that photo? Okay. Anybody heard of Barney Ewell? Okay, the 1948 Olympics. You probably didn't know that he had polio at one point, right? Yeah. And he and his father would run next to the trolley, and that would help strengthen his legs. My father told me that story. Yeah, so he witnessed that. Their home was maybe a block from where our home was, but skipped 2 Olympics because of the war, ran at age 30, and brought back 3 Olympic medals. He lost the other 2 medals, silver medals, by 1 second apiece. Okay, and that's how close he was with the other 2 ones that he had in the 220 and also the 100. So in the relays, he won the gold medal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And initially, just a little story about that. I don't know what was going on over there at that time, but they disqualified. Yeah, initially in the relays, and then they went back, and because they thought that they ran outside the line. You can't run outside the line in track, so they disqualified them. Yep, they won the race, but they said they were disqualified. But they did have the cameras back then, and the cameras showed that he didn't step outside the line. So then they gave him the gold medal. Yeah, so just a little tidbit. Miss Ida Gantz, dedicated not only to the church, Bethel Church, but also to the community and to the playground. Head Start and the adult education, she was involved in all of that, the beginnings of that, sitting on different boards to initiate to get education in that particular area of the city. Miss Ida Gant. Mm-hmm. And her home is right across the street.
Yep. All right, Harold Jordan grew up here at 543 and a half North Street, right across really from the Polite home. And Harold Jordan was the youngest of 7 children. His mother was called Big Mom, and she was a real force for her family and for the neighborhood, and she worked hard to raise her kids and raise them right. When he was in 4th grade, there was a lesson in school, this was the early 1940s, about how to do basic electrical wiring. Now, at this time, that home did not have electrical wiring inside, but the neighbor did. After that one lesson in 4th grade, he went home, up to the attic, played around with the neighbor's wiring, brought electricity into his attic so he could have a lamp to read by at night. 4th grade. And he said, I even followed the safety precautions because the teacher taught us how to do it safely. So for one thing, that they were teaching electrical wiring in 4th grade back then, and that he took that one lesson and made it happen. And we like to tell that story because it sort of, he exemplifies the attitude with a number of the individuals that you're seeing here in this neighborhood of problem solving, ingenuity, resilience, working around barriers, getting things done. And that was Harold Jordan. We can see it in him from a very young age. He ended up going on to join the military. He was a paratrooper, going down behind enemy lines in the parachute. It's highly dangerous. He was very decorated. He got the Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars with Oakley Cluster, Presidential Citation, and others. After he retired from the military, he came back to Lancaster. He worked in the sheriff's department for a number of years, but then he pursued his real dream, which was to develop a recovery house for adolescent young males. And that was the Manos house there. That's what it looked like at the time when he established it. So this was his, culminating gift to the community. And when he passed away, on the funeral page, all these men were writing in about how they had been to Manos house and how Harold Jordan had changed their life. And they were writing those testimonials one after another. So Harold Jordan was an extraordinary person. And again, but he was one of many extraordinary people from the neighborhood.
It's Dr. Copper. I think we kind of...
Yeah, we already did that. So that's just where the office was. Dr. Travis.
He was a dentist. Dr. Travis was our dentist. And initially in the building, it was Dr. Copper on the lower level and Dr. Travis on the 2nd floor. And then Dr. Travis established his own separate building in later years. Mr. Walt Harrison, the barber. Mr. Walt Harrison graduated from barber school, and they asked him if he would work downtown, cutting hair. Now his son told me this story. So he refused. He said no, because when you cut hair downtown, you could only cut white men's hair. So he refused, and he went to that location on Duke Street and cut hair there for 30 years. The stories that I have for Mr. Walt Harrison is his daughter told me this story, that if a kid would come into the shop and looked as if he was hungry or needed a meal, he would take him in the back where he lived at that residence and feed the kid food. My story is my father would walk me up from 540 North Street and walk me across the street. Duke Street was a 2-way street. I couldn't navigate that street. So he would take me, walk me across the street, walk into the office, to the barber shop. I'd wait, get my hair cut. Same cut I got now. Yeah, some things don't change. Same cut, just straight up bald, straight up buzz cut. And then Mr. Walt Harrison, right, would stop cutting hair and walk me back across the street. So he wouldn't rely on some of his patrons. He would walk me across the street himself. And I remember that distinctly. Yeah. But once again, it just shows the character of him and the type of person that he was. And then he became a magistrate of that area after he retired. Yeah. Mr. Walt Harrison. Mr. Walt Harrison and Mr. Vic is right across the street. His grandson is actually owner of the shop now, the barber shop, but he was licensed and trained and what do you call it? The daggone, what's that word? Mentored. That's not the word I'm looking for. But anyhow, by Mr. Walt Harrison. Yeah. Is that the last one?
Then now Urban Renewal, yep.
Urban Renewal had an effect on the community. It actually started, some of it started back in 1954, meaning when, Brown versus the Board of Education. And in that particular area, you saw what we call today as white flight. They began to get out of the area because they didn't want to be educated with other black kids. Then the civil rights started happening at that time. And part of the pushback in the 60s and early 70s was the urban renewal. They came in with the bulldozers and began to destroy the homes. So the fabric of the community was ruptured, and it has yet to recover. In spite of, like you can see 14 blocks, in spite of what happened with that community, as was mentioned earlier, there were individuals and families that came out of the community that did some really great things. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, foot doctors, counselors, barbers, military folks, decorated, Olympians. So in spite of the set of circumstances, great things and great people and great character came out of that neighborhood. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Yes.
You showed a picture of a coin for the postal workers.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a
Buffalo.
U.S. quarter? It said it was U.S. mint coin.
That was Buffalo Soldiers.
The women.
Oh.
Postal.
Yeah, 6888.
Yeah. Is that the obverse of a quarter?
No, I don't think it was a quarter. I think it was just a special coin that
Right.
was minted to commemorate what they did.
Yeah.
1925 it says. Or 2025. Is that?
45. This is 45, 46.
Yeah, just looking underneath. I guess the picture just came from that in 2025 where it says United States Mint, Department of Treasury.
Oh. Yeah, that's okay.
That's just
yeah.
a picture, okay,
But yeah, the dates are right here
gotcha.
on the coin.
Did urban renewal happen in any other community in Lancaster?
Yeah, like 900 other communities across the country.
Across the country, but in Lancaster, was it only in the African American community, or did it happen in other?
Primarily. I mean, there was some removal of other homes in other areas of the city, but not much. Nowhere near close to what it was in the southeast.
And where did people go?
They went where they could.
Yeah.
Yeah, some went with other family members, some moved, some they gave money to get smaller places. In later years, they built subsidized homes that they came back to, so, yeah.
Was there any reimbursement for those houses?
There was some reimbursement. Of course, they lowballed the price. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How was your home spared?
because of the spirit of Abraham Polite Sr. and Nelson Polite Sr., they would not have that. No. They would, yeah, that's a whole conversation. They weren't having that. They'd have never left the home. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, that was never in question. Not that I know of. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they definitely weren't having that. No question. So they did tear down the homes right next to our home. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were these people convinced that this was for their betterment, or how did?
No.
Who made the decision?
They call it for the federal government, really. That's why it was nationwide. That's who initially.
Because my question,
That's where a lot of money came
who
from.
made the decision as to what area? Like today, when that happens, there's zoning boards and historical, that everybody's to fight. But it sounds like they just arbitrarily decided.
Well, not necessarily. It was targeted.
It was targeted.
Yes, it was targeted. Yeah, and intentional.
But the federal government was the one that came in.
Yeah, they produced a lot of the money. Yeah, like I said, the civil rights movement was a movement for us to have a better life in America, basically. Okay, and some people didn't like that, so the pushback was to fracture the neighborhood, and that's what they did. So after they tore down the homes, then they infested the neighborhoods with more alcohol and drugs. And then, of course, what breeds with drugs and alcohol is crime. And then they came in and issued mass incarceration. You guys ever hear mass incarceration? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's adding insult to injury, right? Yeah.
I can read what it says under the AI overview of what started Urban Renewal. It says it was the Housing Act of 1941
Yep.
signed by Democratic President Harry Truman.
I remember that.
The goal was to clear cities of their slums and rebuild things better.
Right.
So it started in 1949 under Democratic President Harry Truman.
Yeah.
49?
I remember
49,
that. And I remember reading that. Right.
Yeah.
Just what you read. Yeah. But it accelerated, right, when there was an issue with civil rights. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they used that to accelerate the action. Yeah. So yeah, it started out a so-called good thing, per se, renewal. But that primarily was talking about, the Caucasian neighborhoods. Yeah. Because they didn't care about our neighborhood back then, what it looked like.
Didn't Urban Renewal also result in what they now are trying to undo because it was considered blighted after the Urban Renewal on the 100 block of North Queen? They actually took out C. Emlyn urban buildings, the YMCA, the Hotel Brunswick. They tore all of that down as part of the Urban Renewal as improvement. And we are still to this day trying to improve on their improvements.
Yeah, I remember that, because I remember that why. Yeah, yeah, and as I mentioned, because I think you asked me about, what other areas of the city, and they did right downtown. And I remember that. I swam at that Y. Yeah. Mm.
Sounds like you could do a whole thing on just this urban renewal.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But in terms of individuals, people's homes, it was more in the Southeast. That was a place for people to go and congregate and have activities in terms of the Y, but not people's homes where they actually live at. And businesses. It wasn't just homes, it was also businesses that they tore down at that time. Yeah.
Do you have any idea of the percentage of the area of the neighborhood was destroyed under urban renewal?
Yeah, I don't know percentage. I think the number of homes. Well, I
Yeah,
forget.
it's significant. 14 square blocks were
Right.
flattened. And then west of South Duke Street, that's where all those pictures we had of this empty lot, that the parking lots, that it was like Swiss cheese. So it was a substantial percentage.
Could
Yeah.
that happen
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, well, they call it gentrification. It comes under the guise of gentrification. You guys know what gentrification is?
But that's usually an individual buys something or a small company, it's not really government funded.
Has the same effect. It removes people that they can't get back in them homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't get back in them.
Government knocked down the part of the White House, they can knock down anything they want to.
Yeah, that's a whole nother question. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really interested in the dates of the Buffalo Soldiers. I've read a lot of Western history and a little bit of Black history, but I never realized, did they disband in 1944 during World War II?
No, that's the Korean War when they disbanded.
So they disbanded evidently with Truman.
Yeah, the Korean.
Integrating the services.
Yeah,
Oh,
Korean
okay.
War. Yeah.
Because they
You're
were
correct.
really, in the West, you read a lot about them when they were the 9th and 10th Cavalry.
Right.
But I haven't been able to find anything on them in World War I.
Yeah.
Did they go to
Yeah, they were around all the way through.
and did they go with Roosevelt at all in the Spanish-American War?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's not included in the history book.
No.
I don't think.
No.
You don't see it very often.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen that they were, they talk about Teddy Roosevelt's great campaign to recruit Western soldiers. I mean, he had trains going to get people from the West because he wanted a cavalry. And the 9th and 10th set would have seemed to be his ideal, but you don't hear the writing about them being in that particular skirmish. And I just wondered if they were.
Absolutely. And did you know that we were in every war in this country? Did you guys know that? Yeah. Every single war.
Buffalo soldiers or who?
No, black
Black.
men and women, black men in particular. Every war in this country, every, not some of them, all of them, yeah. But only to come back with different so-called rights. But the Buffalo Soldiers started out as a result of the end
Now, did they
of the
remain
Civil
as the
War.
9th and 10th Cavalry, or were they put into the infantry eventually as infantry units? I just
I think they were, but they started out after the Civil War.
yeah.
Because there was all these black soldiers in the United States color troops, right? And he said, well, what are we gonna do with them? Yeah, that's really how they actually started out. Because it was segregated, obviously, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then they sent them west. Yeah, and then they encountered the Indians, and hence comes their name, the Buffalo Soldiers. Yeah.
I have a question that reverts back to the Boy Scout Award.
Silver Beaver.
The Silver Beaver. I noticed on the award paper, it said the Pennsylvania Dutch Council. And I was wondering, was that an integrated, a troop of boys?
No.
No.
It was, we kind of have a sign, a picture of some of them, the troops. I think it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, right, with Crispus Attucks.
Yeah, troop.
With Crispus Attucks, there's a picture with some Boy Scouts in it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they were integrated.
And
But they were recognized, obviously.
right. And I was just wondering, this Silver Beaver Award, do you happen to know if is that the equivalent of the Eagle Scout today for Boy Scouts? Or do you know what level that was?
I think it's just under that.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that too.
Oh.
Yeah. I did, yeah, it was just under that. Mm-hmm.
I just thought maybe because it was Pennsylvania Dutch, you know, maybe they were more liberal about who they take, you know, because of their religious beliefs, but but segregation was
Still happening.
The
Yeah.
rule of the day, yeah.
Exactly. Any other questions?
Are you still on the city planning commission board?
Yeah. Yes.
And does that help?
I'm going to say, how'd you find that? How'd you find that out?
It's in here.
Oh, it's in there. Okay. All right.
Maybe you have some authority to make these decisions that relating to the renewal programs, that being on the committee.
Yeah, well, there's none of that now. Yeah, Planning Commission has a different role, so to speak. And that role would kind of be out of our little purview. But we do exactly what our title is, meaning we set plans for buildings and codes for the city. Yeah. So then the contractor has to meet those codes for the planning of the city, that it fits the codes. Yeah.
A postscript to the Silver Beaver, the Pennsylvania Dutch Council presents the Silver Beaver Awards at their annual council recognition reception, which is the council's highest distinguished service honor, awarded to adult volunteers for making a lifelong positive impact on youth.
Ah, it's for adults, I see.
There you go.
Quite the honor.
Yeah. And I actually have that, the Silver Beaver, yeah, at the house. Yes.
Was there any feedback from the colleges in the area, Norsville or Franklin and Marshall, about urban development? I'm sure there were people on their faculties that were involved or looked at urban development in the area.
Yeah, but I'm not certain how significant it was. Yeah.
Yeah. There was this book by Professor Schuyler at F&M. And if you're interested in doing a really deep dive, you can read that book by Schuyler. And one thing that you'll find is they put in levels of bureaucracy that you can't even imagine. Like all these agencies and levels were created at that time. So for local people to even try to fight it, it was this impenetrable maze. You know, you couldn't even get straight answers. People would, you know, deflect, you can imagine. So it was all part of that strategy of making it almost impossible to stop once it got started. But the book by Schuyler, if you want to dig deep into what happened in Lancaster, it's quite fascinating. I think the library has 1 or 2 copies.
What was the name of it?
I forget what it's called, but it's Schuyler is the author, and he was an F&M professor who studied it. Yeah.
Was there any newspaper in Lancaster specifically for the Black community, or was it just?
At what time? At what time? Go ahead.
Let's say
During.
in the 1850s to the 1930s, or in that area.
No. Of course, you know, Frederick Douglass had the North Star. Yeah. And they had a couple other magazines circulated, but he had the North Star. There's always, Ebony's always been around for a long time. Yeah. Any other questions? Th- Thank you for your time once again. Appreciate it. Yeah, just one little thing. I do have some books and some information about our organization. Do you want me to explain it or no?
Yes, please, I was gonna.
Do you have
ask
time
that.
or no?
Yes,
Okay. I have books up here so you can come and take pictures of the books. Sylvia, you can talk about the tours real quick.
Yep, so we have walking tours of our downtown tour, which was last month's presentation, and today Southeast tour. We have rack cards up here where you can get the details. I highly recommend you do the tours in person so that you can walk the streets and be in the place.
Some sort of order here. I think we'll go with the, you can hold that up. Frederick Douglass. Yeah, Frederick Douglass, we're going to do his 1852 speech at Bethel A Church. You were at Bethel A Church. And we're going to do that July the 5th. The doors open at 1 o'clock. The reading of his speech will start at 2 o'clock. There's about 40 or 45 persons who read portions of his speech. And we're doing that in relationship to the 250th anniversary of this country because we still think that much of his speech is still relevant today, okay? July the 5th. Next, we have the Living Experience. We just want to give a plug in for them. It's a reenactment of the Underground Railroad. And you were just there. Can you want to say just a tiny bit about it? Or whoever wants to say something? You were there.
It's a good experience.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
good to go.
Okay.
You learn a lot and it's very interesting.
Okay.
I didn't do it recently, but it is one of the most memorable things I have ever done. It was very powerfully done, and everyone involved, kudos to everyone, because you left there feeling deeply what you already knew.
Yes.
It was just wonderful.
Good. And then lastly, we have our distinguished professor, Erica Armstrong Dunbar. She will come at our annual luncheon, our 12th annual luncheon in Lancaster as our keynote speaker. She wrote the book, Never Caught. And basically it's a book about Ona Judge and who she was. She was an enslaved woman by George Washington. And when they went to Philadelphia, she escaped from Philadelphia and went to New Hampshire, and hence she was never caught. He pursued her up until a month before his death in 1899. Yeah, pursued her, and that's documented. Yeah. So we'll have her come. So
Is all of this on your
this is
website?
it's
Yes,
on the
yeah.
website. This is October the 24th. This event, and we do the Living Experience. Our next one is in August.
August, first Saturday of the month, August next. You can take pictures of these too
Yeah.
today?
Thank you.
Oh, no.
The title of the book by David Schuyler is A City Transformed: Redevelopment, Race, and Suburbanization in Lancaster, Pennsylvania from 1940 to 1980. No wonder you couldn't
No
remember
wonder I
that.
could not remember that whole title. But it is quite fascinating, yes, if you want a deep dive.
Well, I want to thank you very much for
Sure.
bringing that story. I mean, to me, it's the fabric of America. To me, it's the stitches that put us together.
Yeah.
And, you know, the heritage needs to be celebrated. So thank you very much.
Sure.
So how about another big round of applause? And stay in touch.
We will. We will.
Okay, thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you next week, and we're closing in on 3 more weeks. Michael Harris, yeah, we'll be talking about
You know,
Fighting
Gail
along the
Henson,
Delaware, yeah.
is she part of your church too?
Yes.
Could you put the recording on the drive like you did? And the other thing is,
Right.
okay.
Shame she lost